Here are a few uh, important statements that he makes in his piece in the Wall Street Journal. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, there were 492 homicides in Chicago last year. Guess how many of them involved the police? 492 human beings were killed by another human being. How many do you think involved the police? Why don't you guess, Sean? All right, what is 5% of 492? 5%, make it 500. 5% of 100 is 5. That means 25. So you guessed 25. You think that's high now. 3. The charge of rampant police brutality is another left-wing lie. The left lives on lies. The tragedy is how many young people believe these lies because it's all they hear. Evidence is never offered. It's all emotion. All emotion. To grow up, you must conquer your emotion with the use of reason. Reason is a sort of white privilege now. 3. What's 3 of 500? What? So, I mean, we're talking. It's almost a negligible percent. The available evidence shows that police use of deadly force has plunged in recent decades, including in big cities with large populations of low-income minorities. In the early 1970s, New York City police officers shot more than 300 people a year. By 2019, that number had fallen to 34. So essentially a tenth within 50 years. Part of the confusion stems from attempts to equate any racial disparities with racism, which is as mistaken as equating age and gender disparities with systemic discrimination. Young people are incarcerated at higher rates than older people, and men draw more police attention than women. Is something fishy going on here? Or does such outcomes simply reflect the fact that young men are behind most violent crime? When journalists break down police behavior by race but don't do the same for criminal behavior, you're not getting the whole story. A recent New York Times report, this is an example of the way the New York Times lies. A recent New York Times report, for example, tells us that the racial makeup of Minneapolis is 20% black and 60% white, and that police there, quote, used force against black people at a rate at least 7 times that of white people during the past 5 years, unquote. Left out of the story are the rates at which blacks and whites in Minneapolis commit crime in general and violent crime in particular. So do you see what the New York Times does, the way it lies? 7 times, proportionately, 7 times as many blacks as whites are shot by the police. Because they do it based on the population, but they don't do it based on criminal behavior. So it's irrelevant, isn't it? As he said, why not do it with regard to males? Males are half the population. Females are half the population. How come they don't shoot females 50% of the time? Because they're not involved in violent behavior.